Be here. Hamilton. Here. Cotsini.
Here.
Linsdale. Here. Sutton.
Here.
We have a quorum.
States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Newport Public Library District provides the community with access to information, kindles the imagination of children and adults, and supports lifelong learning. Would anyone like to speak in public comment? Correspondence, is there correspondence?
We have a correspondence on the table.
Oh, yeah, this one, yeah. Did everyone see this? Want to explain it?
No, it's just a reminder. We get these courtesy memos. I don't always share them with the board, but our attorney is very good at reminding us of the big important deadlines like the levy ordinance. So
Okay, anybody want to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay, there are two sets of exec session minutes. Did everyone have opportunity to read those? Okay, so who would like to move to approve as presented?
So moved.
I'll second that. Discussion?
Just to make sure that everybody passes the exec session notes back to me, so I can. just take those. Even if the meeting's fine. Don't worry.
Okay. Let's see, where are we? Okay, so all those in favor say aye. Opposed, abstain. President's report. 14, questions, comments, concerns? Okay, anyone else have a report?
I do.
We have a report on the table from your team.
Yeah,
So attended the ILA conference last week. It's just a summary of the sessions that I went to and key takeaways. The theme of the conference, more than anything else, was making our library both more inclusive and more effective to parts of our community. I will say the one thing that I saw in here that I really took as a takeaway, one of our libraries in the area, Evanston, is working with Illinois Legal Aid to have established a legal aid desk in the library. I thought that was very innovative. I don't know if we've got the resources to pull anything like that off, but I can tell you it is something that is very useful for our patrons, something that a lot of them would not know about. I think one of the interesting things is most people don't even know they have a legal problem. Just having somebody they can turn to and say, what is this, is helpful.
yeah, George, I actually put an asterisk next to that because I attended ILA as well. I was not able to go to that session. But I agree. In fact, when I went to the Highwood Public Library last week, and one of the things they're doing there is a similar program offering legal assistance in Spanish for their patrons. So I think it is a good thing to offer, and something you can offer through a partnership. It's not necessarily like the library would have to hire an attorney. We could partner with somebody. So yeah.
I can tell you, I remember being very young. This was a little after my father had died. We had our roof redone, and we hired what we thought was a roofing contractor, but turned out to be a less than reputable general contractor. We paid them, they never paid the roofer. The roofer turns around and sues us. My mother barely speaks English. You know, where do you go? Unfortunately, we need people who need people. Most people don't have that advantage. It would be nice to have a place where they can go to ask, what do I do?
anyone else? Okay, you're up.
So the reports on page 15. I wanted to kind of go back to something in the patron comments, the 88-year-old gentleman that came into the library and complimented our staff. I just wanted to let the board know that we did reach out to him directly, and we let him know about homebound services that we offered, and I don't think he's ready for that, but he appreciated that. So but that was a nice, it's always nice to get the positive feedback from patrons, so we're making an impact. So we do have a great staff. and I'll save the rest, I think, for lab reparations and master requirements update. But any questions about the report?
Okay, then go on to operations.
Yeah, so I'm happy to report, if you weren't aware, that Lake County, now we are substantial risk for COVID-19 as opposed to high, which isn't amazing, but it's a step in the right direction. Governor Pritzker had I think it was a press conference today where he talked about the declining coronavirus cases, hospitalizations in Illinois, and that could lead him to lift certain mask mandates in time for the holiday season. So they're starting to talk about that. But if you look at Illinois, handful of counties are substantial, but most of the state is still high. Only 2 of the states or counties, 102. 2 of the states under 2 counties are below that level. If you look at the numbers a little further, we're still not back to the low we saw in the summer before. There's a reporter that did a deep dive on this. And this is, so we're still not at the low we saw in the summer before, and that's before the Delta variant hit us, which is 2 times more transmissible than the previous variants. So we're still not back to that low June level. So I think we still have a ways to go, but we'll continue to monitor the situation. The CDC still recommends mask inside for everyone, whether you're substantial or high risk areas, and you know, we're still in substantial. So we're going to continue to watch the CDC. And even if we get down to, I think next would be moderate and then low, the governor's mandate is still in effect. So we'll abide by that mandate. So that's where we're at with the mask requirements. In terms of lab operations, you know, we continue to move along. I do see, it does seem like foot traffic is kind of steadied, but you know, that we're continuing to offer more and more. We've reopened the book drop Fire Station 2 in Gurnee. The delay in that was staffing, because we didn't have the staff to empty that book drop. So and if you look at the executive director's report, we had a net gain in staff. We did lose a few staff, but we gained some staff as well, and really great staff as well, really impressive people. So yeah, so you know, things are looking positive, and we'll continue to move forward as we see be necessary. Coco's Cove, we're reopening space in there. Are we? Nor did we do that? Is that already in effect? It was. Okay, that's what I thought. So we have taken away some of the manipulatives, but it's open, so that's great. So parents can go in. We found that parents were sitting on the floor with their children reading the books. That wasn't ideal. So we're getting there. But I think at this time we'll just continue to, you know, stay the course in terms of the mask requirements. And any questions about what we're doing or mask requirements?
I did want to share something that somebody asked me to share. Former director Pat Lazinski had given me a call, we're talking, and he said, kudos to you when he heard that we were mandating wearing a mask, and we were mandating, you know, vaccines, or, you know, for staff, or getting, you know, tested. He said they're having a heck of a time putting those things in place to tell the board the way to go.
Okay, any other questions on that? Okay, I think the auditors are scheduled for 7:30, correct?
Correct.
Right, so I'm going to move that we go to item 11B and come back to 11A when the auditors are here. If you'd like to second that.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. Okay, so we're on to transfer of funds.
So this is going to be, this action that the board will take this evening is going to be a regular thing until fiscal year 2029, 2030, when we have our debt paid off, but we're not there yet. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to transfer the amount in the motion, what is it, $660,375 to from corporate to bond to pay our debt, because it will come out of the bond fund. So it's, this will be a standard thing for the next, till FY 29-30. Any questions about this?
I would like to make a motion.
I'll move that the board approve a transfer of $660,375 from the corporate fund to the bond fund.
Second. The discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Farkapisi,
Aye.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Linsdau. Aye. Sutton,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Kotzini,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, resolution.
Yeah, so once again, this is explaining your board packet. The kind of the idea behind this is that if we were to levy 5% or more beyond last year's tax extension, we would be required to do a truth in taxation hearing. We do not plan to do that. So the idea behind this resolution is for you to take a look to see if you need to determine if you need to schedule that truth in taxation hearing, which we do not. So so otherwise, it's a pretty standard routine resolution the board passes annually.
What percentage are we at if it's not 5 or more?
Just below the 5% threshold, about 4.99%. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that the tax extension will be 4.98% because we're limited by PTEL. But so typically, the best practice is to capture the new growth in the district. That would be what you would do. Now, next year will be different because next year with the rate of inflation, ever since I've been here, it's been pretty routine, this procedure. But next year, it probably will require. I've been told by the different individuals for the board to do the hearing, but this year it's more of a routine action. So.
Okay, any other questions? I'd like to make a motion.
I'll move that the board adopt resolution 2021-2022-3 to determine estimate of fund needed for fiscal year 2021-2022.
I'll second that. Any discussion? Let's have a roll call.
Hamilton,
Aye.
Arnold,
Aye.
Sutton,
Aye.
Farkapisi, aye. Kotzini,
Aye.
Linsdau, aye. Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Okay, executive director's performance evaluation, just a couple of reminders. One is that your self-evaluation is due Friday. George and I are going to respectively send out the survey and Ryan's evaluation. We'll do that on Sunday, right? Sunday. And then your deadline to fill out the survey is the 31st of October. And then I get the results the 7th, is that right? Okay. Any other concerns about the timeline?
So you said you would be sending them out when approximately?
The survey?
Yeah.
Sunday.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay, Sunday hours.
Yeah, so this has come up looking at the schedule. This is unusual. I'm not even sure how often this happens. So our Sundays this year, Sunday falls after Christmas and after the new year. And, talking to staff about this, we are still short-staffed. And we are concerned about staffing those particular days, especially since it'll be interesting with the Saturday days will be closed where staff will have to take floating holidays. And looking at other situations where we've had a holiday before or after a weekend, a lot of the situations were closed on a Sunday. I looked at the school calendar and the District 56 goes back January 10th. District 50 and 121 go back the 11th. So, I know one concern with closing on a Sunday is if someone needs to get in the library for school purposes, that's not so much an issue with those two Sundays. So I wanted to propose to the board the idea of being closed those Sundays. it would also, honestly, it would also be good for, I think, staff morale as well. So, so that's the argument for being closed on those Sundays. So when to get the board's thoughts, because there's nothing in our policies that would indicate we would be closed on those Sundays.
I think it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. Schools are closed that next week.
Anybody against this idea? Okay, I move that the board approve eliminating Sunday hours for Sunday, December 26, 2021, and Sunday, January 2nd, 2022.
I'll second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed, abstain. Okay, trustee vacancy, I just wanted to give Brian a chance to update us. And also I want to say in front of everyone that amazing Gina translated
Oh,
my huge application and what was printed on the website. Thank you very much. Awesome job.
That's awesome.
so lucky to have it.
Yeah, so we have, it's, gone out through our normal channels. We've also reached out to 16 organizations that we think may be able to help us spread the news. These range from, and my thanks to Joe for coming up with a lot of these organizations to contact. Every place from Mano a Mano to NAACP Lake County to Islamic Foundation North, even Pedro Football, the Spanish language newspaper published in Waukegan. So out of those 16 organizations we contacted, I've heard back from 7 that have confirmed they're going to help us share the posting, including Mano a Mano. Actually, all the organizations I just stated have said they're going to share that. So, and I'm sure others will get back to us as well, one or the other. So we're getting it out there. I don't think we have received back any applications yet, but that's okay. It's not, the deadline hasn't reached yet. So we've got a little bit of time. So I'm encouraged by the the places we're putting it out there anyway, and we'll see what happens from here. So.
Okay, so should we take a break or what?
We can talk about,
Guess we could go through to the end, right? Anyone have agenda items for?
maybe save public comment for the very end.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So anyone have other agenda items that aren't on here? Either for November regular or November committee of the whole?
One thing, Joe, I will want to talk about at committee of the whole is looking at the merit increases for January 1st, because I think the board needs to have a discussion about looking at that. In the budget, it's a 2% increase, but looking at inflation versus the merit increase, the board might want to talk about that. And I think we could possibly afford to provide a higher merit increase for staff if the board deem that appropriate with the budget that the board passed. So Doug and I are looking at the numbers right now and seeing if that's feasible or not. So I at least have that conversation with the board.
No other agenda items?
You have my policy
Do I? No.
3015.
Is that material selection?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
A nice lengthy one.
Okay, any other announcements besides what's on here?
For one more thing for committee of the whole, do we have any update on the water fountain?
Yeah, we can talk about that. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other announcements? Ryan and I have one that's not on here, which is that we were wondering about the possibility of moving our December regular meeting from the 21st back a week. That'll put them both committee of the whole and regular a week apart, but it won't leave the regular meeting so close to Christmas. Just a thought. What do people think of that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at a calendar.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, we don't need a motion for that.
When are we moving them to?
what date?
I'm sorry?
We're talking about moving it to right now it's the 7th and 21st. Yes,
Yes.
7th, 14th.
7
yeah,
and
so proposing moving the regular meeting from the 21st to the 14th.
to the 14th. Is that good with everybody? And
December
you'll
what?
you change it on the website?
Yeah, we'll make that change.
Changing it to. let me get my calendar. 14th, thanks. From, we're moving it back from the 21st of December to the 14th. Is that the right date?
Yeah.
Okay.
14th.
Okay, so. Now, should we take a break? Anyone else have any announcements? Did I ask that already? I guess.
does anyone want to say anything else about the ILA conference?
Sure.
It was very, I just skimmed it since we sat down, George, and it's really informative. There's a lot of interesting pieces here that I commend you for going for all those days, however many it was, but I appreciate hearing all what was there.
Ryan went too. I don't know.
I-
if you have
I-
anything to share.
Yeah, I did. And, I think it was, one of I was talking to Joe about this earlier, and I miss going to, this conference in person because I get as much, if not more, from the networking and, going to the vendor exhibits as I do the sessions. That said, these sessions were really outstanding. I thought the opening, Clint Smith, the author of How the Word is Passed to Reckoning with Reckoning with the History of Slavery Across America. I guess this book came out in June, and I haven't read it, but it's on my list. It was really fascinating, his presentation, and it just sounds like a tremendous novel. And George, highlights it well in his notes, because he basically traveled to different places and just, puts this, this history that we don't even know about slavery in our country and how it still impacts us today. So that was a really powerful presentation. So that was the thing that stood out in my mind the most. And the Carmen, the presentation that Highwood gave during this, Carmen's also the one that did the presentation for us with Eddie,
With
with
Eddie,
the Rails
yeah.
grant that we received.
Yeah.
And it's just really amazing what they've been able to do in Highwood. And really it's just a matter of, it's not easy because it takes a big mind shift in the way you deliver services and engage the community. However, it's not like this huge budget increase. It's just a matter of using volunteers and relationships in the community to, bring in these services that these other local nonprofits provide to your patrons in this place, the Spanish speaking community. So it was great. So.
One thing that I found interesting on a more practical note, the architecture firm that came in to do a talk about how they help streamline services in some of the local libraries and some of their thinking for post-pandemic furniture and organization in libraries. And I know we're looking at our furnishings very closely. And one of the things that they highlighted was the concept that you can still have people physically close together, but by orienting the seats in certain ways, you can make it so that you can create pods effectively. So people don't feel like they're crowded in one spot. And kind of the opposite of our living room approach that we have. in the first century.
Yeah, it was unfortunate that we had to end that adult space project, but I'm also, I feel like we're lucky that we didn't go complete that project and then the pandemic hit, and then we would have done things that we probably would have to reverse. So it is an opportunity for us to reconfigure that space post-pandemic, or if that's even the right term for how people want to use the library.
And all the companies that we used to work with, I just got a note from Gotti today, they are addressing that with the furniture that they're coming out. So I
And then another note, Ryan, you might be contacted by other libraries because we are the first one that anyone there had heard of that I spoke with that has passed a mandate for their staff to get vaccinated.
I don't think that's true. Well, first of all, there's not a mandate for us to be vaccinated.
Well, sorry.
There's two options, but
Our vaccine
but there are because I know that Highland Park is maybe they're not there yet, but I know it's coming. So I think it's even if we were the first officially, I know that there are some libraries that are right behind us anyway. So. But I saw that and I did note that. I thought that's interesting, at least in that presentation. Looks like Kevin's here. Kevin Smith. Can you hear us? Hey, Kevin, can you hear us?
I'm gonna go sit somewhere else. Is that okay?
Sure. Is he on the weeks? Yeah, exactly. Is he's dialed in and then maybe his phone's on mute?
Hi, can everybody hear me now?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone, we can all hear Kevin?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I had to call in on my cell phone. The microphone on my computer's not working, so that's why you see the random cell phone number that's in there right now. Okay, do you guys want me to just get started or?
Yeah. Go for it.
Okay, all right. Well, obviously first I just wanted to, thanks for having me. Obviously, thanks for doing the Zoom meeting. That obviously makes things, a little easier. Ideally I'd like to get out there at some point. It's always better to do these things in person. It's a little more difficult to do over Zoom, but so overall, I won't, take a lot of your guys' time. Just kind of wanted to give a short overview of the audit, how it went, like we've done every year. So overall, fieldwork went well. Doug, Ryan, all the other staff got us anything that we needed. Joe worked really well with everyone. So from a fieldwork perspective, everything went well and very smoothly. Some of the key things that, you guys always want to hear is, through that process, we always do our walkthroughs of your guys' procedures. Obviously, we're reviewing accounts, making any necessary journal entries, anything like that. Through that process, we didn't see anything significant that needed to be reported in the management letter. So everything was smooth there. So there's no management letter in the current year, which is the same as in the prior year as well. Also, same as in the prior year, the audit report itself has a clean, unmodified opinion. That's the best opinion you guys can get. So I know that's a key thing everyone likes to hear as well. As far as accounting standards affecting you guys this year, nothing significant changed accounting wise. But what potentially is going to come into play next year, although we've had some conversations with both Doug and Ryan already, and I don't think it's going to affect you guys too much, is GASB 87. That was a standard related to leases that was supposed to be in effect for any period beginning after December 15, 2019. So it really should have been in effect this year, but everything got pushed back with COVID. It got pushed back 18 months. So really the first people implementing this are going to be all the 630 year-end dates next year. What it is, I mean, it's not anything, out of the ordinary. It's essentially what they're saying is things that were operating leases in the past where you never recorded a liability on the books for those types of things. If they're for a right to use an asset, essentially they're going to be treated very similar to a capital lease. So if it's a right to use something that you guys aren't capitalizing because you're not going to buy it at the end of the lease term, that's usually considered operating. In this case, it would essentially be put on the books as an asset, put on the books as a liability. You were to amortize that over time. Ultimately, it doesn't affect a whole lot on your guys' bottom line. the expense that you would be amortizing is going to be very close to the lease payments. It's really just a matter of slight differences over the period of the lease between the amortization and what the actual payments are. So if you did have anything, there wouldn't be a big significant change to your guys' financials, more so other than just having the asset and the liability on the books. Like I said, we kind of talked about this a little bit, and I don't think it's going to affect you guys significantly. But we've let both Doug and Ryan to just keep an eye out, see if there's anything that potentially could fall out on fall under this. And when we get closer to the audit, we'll sit down and see if it's even anything material, anything that would need to be changed. So that's looking forward to next year as far as GASB's. So overall, with there being no real new standard changes for this year, the report is very similar to the prior years, obviously, other than being updated for current year numbers. The subsequent event footnote continued on with the uncertainties related to COVID. This has been continuing in all our reports just because, there still are some uncertainties with, how everything's going to go. People still have staffing issues, still worried about certain state revenues, things like that. Ultimately, it didn't affect you guys significantly last year, but we did modify it a little bit to note some specifics of when you guys were shut down and curbside only during the prior year. So that's a little different. Financial highlights, always like to kind of go over where things ended, where you guys sit. Fund balance for the year is going to be on page 12 of the report. The total governmental funds are up about $415,000, which really mainly is reduced to reduced debt service expenditures this year, while revenues remained relatively flat in comparison to the prior year. That was the main reason for the increase this year. Ending fund balance in general, you guys are at about $3.1 million at the end of the year, which is pretty much a similar position to where you guys were last year, at about 9 months of expense. A little higher than you guys were last year, obviously, with the increase, but not significantly higher. Again, the general fund also looks a little higher as well because you guys are paying the debt service in total out of the debt service fund itself, as opposed to where you guys used to pay that out of the general fund. But your expenses were a little down in the general fund. Other funds, page 38, that lists out all your guys' other non-major type funds. Those all seem to be in good shape as well. All funds that levy an amount in that fund have about a year of current year expense in there, so it's a good spot to be in. It's not too much. It's not building to a point where you guys would be concerned that you could get property tax objections or anything like that. So it's not too high, but it's also in a good spot where it's not too low. We usually look for 6 months is kind of a good gauge of where you want to start watching it's getting too low. So you guys are obviously well in excess there. IMRF's the only one that wasn't quite a year, but that one's 10 months. So again, no concern there as well either. And for funds that don't levy, that you guys also do have the $2.5 million that's set aside in a special reserves fund, which is obviously specifically for capital projects. The government-wide then, which is page 9 of the report, this is when you guys start bringing in all your things that you guys don't necessarily look at on a month-to-month basis. This has got all your fixed assets, your long-term debt, any pension, OPEB liabilities. That all those things come onto the government-wide financial statements, and you adjust your fund financial statements for that. That's on page 9 of the report. It was an increase of last year for about $932,000. Page 13 of the report gives you guys a nice breakdown of how you get from the 415 I talked about earlier on the fund financials to the 932 on page 9 on the government-wide financials. It's really mainly due to an adjustment from a current financial resource to long-term outlook. So things like long-term debt payments, like I noted, those aren't expenditures on government-wide. They're considered reductions of the debt. Pension contributions, so IMRF contributions, those are considered a reduction of your IMRF liability as opposed to expenditures. So those get essentially brought up into the balance sheet to reduce those liabilities then, which then makes your expenses less than the government-wide, and that's really the main reason for the increase there. And another reason changing from last year more so is pension expense is significantly down this year as well. related to IMRF. Investments did very well this year for all types of pension funds. For calculations of pension liabilities, that reduces the expense significantly. So you'll see that across the board at pretty much anyone that's involved in IMRF or has like a police or fire pension. The pension expenses were significantly lower this year, and that held true for you guys as well. So overall, you guys seem to be in a good financial position. Those were the main things that I wanted to hit on. So unless you guys got any specific questions, that was all for my presentation.
Did you guys get a copy of the audited report?
Just a digital one.
Online.
Because I looked at the first one before they saw it, I
right.
wasn't paying attention.
And so Kevin, since you're not here, I'm assuming that like last time, we're gonna get sent the paper copies if the board members want to have paper copies. I mean, we can print them.
Yes,
too.
we want paper copies. Yep. Those will get sent.
This is a chance to ask Kevin any questions you might have. And he pointed out some good things, especially I appreciate the talking about the different funds and the importance of, obviously, we want our funds to be at a certain level between 50 and 100%, but if we're above 100%, then we could have taxpayers coming at us, and rightfully so, saying, well, why do you have this fund balance at this amount? That's why we have the special reserve fund, because as you all know, we have a 10-year capital plan, and that's basically telling the taxpayers, yes, we have all this money in special reserve, but we need this money for these reasons. So.
Okay, I guess we're ready for a motion. Who would like to make it?
I move that we accept the fiscal year end 2020, June 30th, 2020 financial statements as presented.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Sutton.
Aye.
Consini,
Aye.
Hamilton, Arnold,
Aye.
Lansdowne,
Aye.
Baskapisi,
Aye.
Beckwith.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
Yeah, well, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank our auditors, Peter Casellas, I don't know how to say that right. Doug Weideberg. Thank you, Peter Casella. Doug Weideberg, who, because we have so few things, he does so much work behind the scenes we don't even know about. And Ryan and all the staff who helped out with this, so. There's a lot of effort that goes into this that nobody ever sees. They just make it look easy. So,
And thank you for coming tonight also. We really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Yep.
And also thank you to Andrea for your engagement in the process. And we're very lucky to have a trustee like Andrea who is able to help and give feedback on the way. So thanks to your efforts. So we got a great team, that's for sure. So it's a team effort.
You guys
okay,
do it. Things do go smooth out there.
All right.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Good
All
night.
right. Thanks a lot, guys. Have a good one.
Doug zoomed in. I don't know if everyone saw Doug. So Doug, thanks for zooming in.
Bye, Doug.
Doug, you can stay.
All right.
That's always nice.
All
Going
those
to
in
public
favor,
forum
say
first?
aye.
Oh,
Wait, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Point of
public
order.
comment, I forgot. Who would like to speak in public forum? Anybody? Thank you for the reminder. Okay, now we can vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstain. It is,
Wow.
wow.
Almost.
7:39.
39, okay.
Thank you. Almost a record, almost.
Not quite,
But no.
pretty darn
Have you
good.
started the new gig yet, or still?
What?
Have you started, or are you still transitioning?
I finished signing checks. Is that what you're?
No, I'm talking about your job.